Amazon released another trailer for the Rings of Power, and to sum it up, it's like Amazon said, how much can we piss all over Tolkien's legacy? And the showrunners went, yes. I was wondering when Amazon would drop another trailer, because The Rings of Power Season 2 is due out in a month, at the end of August. Amazon's been very tight-lipped about the show. I'm sure they'll spin that as not wanting to leak anything about their highly anticipated masterpiece, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's because they're trying to avoid the criticism they got the last time around. The less info that's out, the less anyone can talk about, so the less negative commentary to be had. But they released a new trailer, and it's better than their previous ones. See, that's positive. The VFX in the trailer look good. It's well edited. The sound quality's okay. Yeah, I'm just stalling. The story is shit. I don't know what else to say. The plot for this season is a hot mess. And this is based on what Amazon put in the trailer. I judged it solely based on that. What they put in the trailer makes their whole cast look like the stupidest idiots you've ever seen. And that's all because the showrunners decided to ignore what Tolkien wrote, retell the story their way, and wrote themselves into the darkest, tiniest corner imaginable. They are stuck, and they don't have the skill or talent to write themselves out. Don't take my word for it. Let's watch the trailer. We're not going to watch all of it, just the important points.
Sauron sees himself as master of all Middle-earth. He seeks to rule it not only through conquest, but by bending the minds of all its peoples to his own.
So, this part is lore accurate. However, because of the writing choices made in the first season, Sauron's rise to power isn't because he manipulated the elves. Instead, it's a direct result of strong woman being too stupid, despite Galadriel being the wisest of all elves, to realize who Halbrand was. She helps him, brings him to the elves, and it's only when Strong Woman checks into discount Aragorn's history that she realizes the guy she's been with is a fake. Sauron doing all these horrible things is Strong Woman's fault. That's literally the opposite of what happens in the book, but I'll get to that later.
And for that he needs not armies.
No!
But rings.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. In the first season, we never see Halbrand trying to gain power over anyone. He does the opposite. He tries to avoid getting into problems. So, this may be the angle the showrunners want to go with now, but it's not the one they set up. You know what would have made this line make sense? If discount Aragorn had taught Celebrimbor how to make lesser rings of power, and we got to see what powers they granted people and what influence Halbrand had over the bearers. That way, if you wanted to change the order of how the great rings of power were made, the audience would know why Sauron making them would be a problem, and the problem with using any of the rings made using his crafts. You know, like what Tolkien wrote. It's almost like he knew what he was doing.
In choosing to wear those rings, you have all become his collaborators.
What the fuck? What? Do you see? Do you see now the problem the showrunners created for themselves? In the book, Celebrimbor creates the three rings using the techniques Annatar, Sauron, taught him, but Sauron played no part in their creation, so their forging wasn't an act of collaboration. When Sauron found out about the rings, he wanted them, but the elves hid them and he never knew who possessed them or where they were. When Sauron created the One Ring, the elves detected him immediately, and then they realized he'd tricked them by posing as Annatar and teaching them how to make rings of power, and they took their rings off so he couldn't control either the rings or their bearers. There was no collaboration, either on purpose or by accident. The elves were deceived. The elves not realizing how Sauron tricked them is fundamental to the story. By changing the order of how the rings were created, by revealing Halbrand is Sauron and creating the three rings first, this makes the elves look stupid if they use the rings, because now they know the three rings were created with Sauron's help and techniques, so they should question what influence he has over them. If the showrunners followed the books, then the elves would already know that Sauron had nothing to do with the making of the three. Do you see the problem the showrunners created for themselves? Now they're going to have Elrond tell Strong Woman, the wisest of all elves, not to use the ring, but then she's gonna go, whatever, I do what I want, and use it anyway, making her look even dumber than she did in the first season. And they put this in the trailer like they was really cooking.
I know you believe this ring is deceiving me, but I believe it is guiding me.
Yeah, just like you believed Halbrand was your friend. After finding out you hung out with a guy you've been hunted for hundreds of years and didn't notice, shouldn't you consider that your sense of judgment might be a little off? Because if you don't, you are definitely the dumbest woman in the world. Just stupid personified.
All this may be by his design.
These rings may be how he attains power.
They must be destroyed.
But no. In the books, the three rings were never tainted by Sauron, so there's nothing negative or dangerous about them as they are. The only threat is that the One Ring can control them and whoever wears them, but since it hasn't been made yet, the three are perfectly safe. Do you see how badly the showrunners wrote themselves into a corner? Now they're having to change the story to fix their fuck-up that they wouldn't have made if they just told the story in the proper order.
We will discuss the rings once you have answered the question. Who is this man?
He's the dude playing the dude disguised as another dude.
He is no man. He deceived me. He is Sauron.
Yes, he is. And despite being the wisest and most perceptive of all elves, you didn't realize you were gallivanting around with the guy you've been looking for hundreds of years. He did not deceive you. You're just the dumbest woman in the world. Not just this one. Every world. All worlds in every multiverse. Stupidest female to ever exist.
What am I to call you?
A sharer of gifts.
You realize that's the same nigga, right? You just saw this man. You just helped him make the rings. Strong Woman just told you he was Sauron. Why in the fuck would you trust him? Let me say it again. Do you see the problem the showrunners created? Now you have Celebrimbor collaborating with the main villain, who he knows is the main villain. In the book, Galadriel warns Celebrimbor not to trust Annatar because she senses something's off about him, but Celebrimbor doesn't listen. But he also doesn't know that Annatar is Sauron. Instead, he and the other elves believe Annatar's lie that he's been sent by the Valar to aid the elves. Why? Because no one's seen Sauron for centuries, so when he appears in the form of Annatar, no one recognizes him. Only Galadriel senses that there's something off about the dude. But if you just have this nigga put on a wig, how are they fooled by this? He didn't even change his face. He's just got blonde hair and pointy ears. They don't recognize him? You think if Taylor Swift dyed her hair another color, no one would know who this woman was? All this does is make the characters look unbelievably stupid.
Is it my task to stop the fire? Is it my task to face Sauron?
Yes, Gandalf, that's exactly why you're here. And I can't believe they're still trying to play this off like this isn't supposed to be Gandalf. They could always change it to be one of the Blue Wizards of Saruman, but constantly using Gandalf's lines from The Lord of the Rings, both the book and the films, doesn't help. And all it's going to do is disappoint the people who actually like the show if it turns out not to be Gandalf.
To try and cheat death might lead to an even greater catastrophe.
See what I mean? That's obviously referencing Gandalf and the Balrog from The Lord of the Rings, and that's one of the many problems with the Rings of Power. The showrunners keep pulling from The Lord of the Rings, so maybe they should have just remade that instead of making this ridiculous fan fiction. There's really nothing else important in the rest of the trailer, but there are some interesting parts. We see an Entwife, there's a setup for Adar to also fight against Sauron. The VFX look way better in this trailer than they did in the first season's trailers. But overall, it still feels like poorly written fan fiction that has no interest in respecting Tolkien's works, addressing the problems created in the first season, or just making sense. You can't have your main characters looking like idiots who fall for the same trick twice. But that's what happens in the trailer. They're still being fooled by Halbrand even though they know this nigga is Sauron. If my expectations for this show were any lower, they'd touch the planet's core. So it's really bad if the trailer makes it feel like I'm being too generous. I will see where this goes, although I don't think I'm going to enjoy the journey. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.